So I just wanted to start off kind of like a little bit general. What are 3 words that you would use to describe yourself?
Family, honest, hardworking.
Alright, so you grew up in Saratoga, and for like me and for other high schoolers, like it's kind of interesting to see how it might have changed, like your experience living in Saratoga as a teenager. Like, what was that like?
Totally enjoyed, like looking back at childhood, totally enjoyed it. Of course, this area is a wonderful place to live and grow up, and of course it's changed. You could probably argue that everywhere in the country has changed, right? At the rate at which our area has changed, obviously, there's good and bad to everything. But no, I look at my childhood and I totally enjoyed it. I would look back and say that always felt tight to my family, always felt a connection with my family, but then also the community. This is a great place to grow up, which is why I ended up coming back here after kind of moving around and going to college and then after college. But ending up here and bringing my own kids back here and having this place be the location that we raise our kids, that's what we wanted.
All right. So is that probably the main reason why you moved back here when you were in Florida or just coaching the national team to raise your kids here?
Yes. Certainly we had roots, right? I've always had roots. This is where I grew up, and it's where my mother and stepfather are. It's where my brother is with his family. But then just like friends and being a part of this community for as long as our family has been, of course I feel a connection and a sense of being comfortable with the area for sure. And to be able to give that back to my kids and have it be a positive place for them to grow up and close to family, that's one of the main reasons why we moved back.
Okay, so kind of going now to LG United, what are your main focuses, or what changes do you want to bring, if any?
I think what we'd like to target and is our main focus. We don't want to chat about kind of what was the past, and it's important to kind of know what it was and what it did well and what it needed. But I think a sense of community, a sense of Los Gatos and Saratoga, they're unique places, and we don't want to be like anybody else. It's unique, and I think to add a sense of community in this club, I think, is really important. We don't want to become some monster club. We don't want to become and compete with all the top clubs. We want to have a nice little club in the area that represents what this area is and what I've known it to be for as long as I've been alive, which is just a good community-based club that we can be proud of.
All right. So, you've coached a lot of different players at different levels, and so what do you try to instill into each one of them? Each player?
No matter what the level it is that you're coaching, you have to try to pull out the enjoyment and the love for the game. And whether you're coaching a national team player before a World Cup and training him, he or she needs to have that love for the sport. And this desire to improve, I think, is a really big one. Just overall desire to want to get better. And yes, I'm the director or one of the directors, and yes, I'm a soccer coach, but I think you can apply that to life lessons too, of whatever it is that you decide to do in life. I use the term get after it, which is enjoy doing what you're doing. What gets you out of bed every morning? And if you're passionate about what you're doing, I think that will show. And so can we try to create that environment where not only with our players but with our staff, do we enjoy doing what we're doing? And I think that is a really big one for anytime you're working with young players or young people. It's a massive responsibility to try to draw that love for the game or that enjoyment out every time they come out.
And like, so that's your end goal maybe for each player, but how do you try to do that? Like,
yeah, so a big one is making a connection with the person first.
Okay.
Right? Yes, we're soccer coaches, but in order to maximize their potential, we need to really get to know who they are as people first. And I think that's a really important message that I can, as a coach, I could never maximize my players without knowing who they are as people first. And gaining that trust that they know we will do everything, or I will do everything I can to help my players. I think that's really important. And having them understand that, like, hey, we're here for you to develop and to improve and I think that's a really important message that maybe is often overlooked, is that we want to connect with the person first before we connect with the player.
All right. So, like, as a soccer player, I've heard a lot of coaches I've had a lot of coaches, and they kind of all say, or they kind of all bring up a mindset about soccer other than, like, physical skills. Which one do you think is more important?
Yes. I think they're hand in hand. I think they're both important. You can't have a fantastic mindset without an ability, or a technical ability, or a tactical ability. But I think that if you have all the knowledge in the world, or if you have all the technique in the world, but you don't have a competitive mindset, then I also think that there's a ceiling for how good you can, or what you can achieve in the sport. A mindset is really, really important that, is often overlooked, and how to train that is complex for sure. But I think, again, the foundation is making sure you create an environment that the players are interested in improving, not that it's driven by the coach always.
Okay. So, I'm kind of going to go a little bit older ages now, but obviously this is a high school newspaper, so what's your take on club versus high school soccer? Like, competitiveness or, like, skill-wise?
Yeah, I mean, listen, we were talking about how much time has changed the landscape of the area, and I grew up in the area, and I went to Bellarmine, and some of my best memories as a young soccer player was playing high school soccer with the buddies that I played with, and representing your school, I think, is important. Just the whole dynamic of playing in front of your girlfriend or your buddies, and your buddies from other schools and girls. I mean, just that whole dynamic of being a kid is important. And I think that it's definitely a sticky subject and a sore subject of what the academy offers and what high school offers. And I have 3 kids. All 3 of my kids play multiple sports. They're still playing with their school teams and whatever it is that they can, whether it's cross country, or little guy's going to try out for basketball this year, and all 3 of them have played school soccer with their teams. So I encourage all of it. We encourage all of it, and I think that that's also a very important piece to developing and growing as a young person, is also being able to represent your school in an athletic, as an athlete, is important.
Okay. So for, like, club, do you think that some of the components of high school soccer are maybe in that, or vice versa? Like,
yeah, I think that it's a slippery slope of saying that, hey, train, and it's slippery slope because maybe we're trying to be like Europe, and we're trying to be like top clubs in the world that you train every day. And the reality is, we have a school system that's different here than in most countries, and not all of our players are going to end up being a pro. So then what do we do for all those others that don't become professional, which is the other 98%? What do we do with them? And school soccer and school sports is important. And so does high school soccer offer the same thing club does? No. But I think they're equally as valuable at times in certain topics as each other. Right? No question you can get a lot out of high school sports, and in this case soccer. Even if the soccer is not always great, but in terms of growth as a human and as a person, there's a lot that you can take away from high school soccer.
All right. So you mentioned 98% aren't gonna go to the pros. So it might be kind of similar to what you try to instill into each player. But what do you want each player to like go out with? Because they probably know that maybe their main focus isn't soccer, but is it more of like a skill-based, or like, again, what you said you wanted to instill into them?
What we want to instill is like, it's the path at which you're developing. So I'm talking to a 10-year-old now, and in 8 years, his dream forever was to become a pro. But 8 years later, he realized, hey, I'm not a pro, and I'm not even going to play in college. Okay, well, does that mean that your whole upbringing and club experience was a failure? Well, of course not, because of hopefully all the things that we've taught you along the way as a young person, of trying to develop yourself or work hard at something that you're passionate about. And if it means that you didn't become a pro, no, but I'm sure that you've hopefully have learned a ton, and we've helped shape you into being a role model, a fantastic young man or young woman in our club that we can be proud of, that, hey, this person came in and out of our club. They totally enjoyed it. What a fantastic experience they had. They felt like they're a part of something bigger than just a soccer team, but they're a part of a bigger club environment and community feel. And does that necessarily mean that that was a failure for the last 5, 6, 7 years? I would hope not. No, of course not.
Okay. So I'm kind of coming back down to my last questions. I have like a few more. But what was your climax or pinnacle achievement in your career, either coaching or playing, or even just like overall in life? It doesn't have to be soccer, if it wasn't soccer.
Well, I mean, it's kind of when it's all said and done and I'm no longer around, how do I want people to remember me? And yeah, I mean, I'm a husband first, I'm a father, and I feel like I've been fortunate and blessed that I've had a good career and amazing experiences as a player, amazing experiences as a coach. I think the soccer-related piece is anytime that you can represent your country in any competition. I'm super prideful because of that. So playing in a World Cup and representing your country is massive. I think it was always a goal of mine that I was able to achieve, and then doing the same thing as a coach. I know that not many people can say that they've done that for the United States, so I'm super proud of those moments. But yeah, bigger than achieving those kind of personal goals, there's nothing like being a father and trying to, what a responsibility that is. And so I take a ton of pride in trying to be a top husband and a top dad, and just an overall good dude. I know I say that quite a bit. Like, just have overall good intentions and have the energy about you be positive. And I think that's really, really important. Certainly something that I try to tell my kids, just to overall be a good person, be a good dude.
All right. My last question is really general. It can be taken like a lot of ways. But like, what does soccer mean to you? Or
wow. Awesome question. Certainly as a biased opinion, and you don't want it to be, but the more was very fortunate to be able to travel all over the world, right? Africa and Asia and all over Europe and South America and Central America. And what if I can say that I truly feel like it's the best sport in the world, and not just because of the athletic piece, but the culture that it brings and the history of, if you really get to understand it and what it means for generations to generation to generation of people, whether it's in Argentina or in Germany or in Central America, and so, or in Asia, I've gotten to see firsthand what the sport means to people and how it brings people together, and the passion that people have towards it. I do say this to my kids, and I often say to my staff, how lucky are we that we're involved in the sport? How lucky are we that we've had the experiences that the sport has given us, and I find it to be part of our obligation to try to give back to the sport as much as possible, because it's been so great to us. So the sport's been unbelievable to me. I've been able to see the world and meet so many people that I wouldn't have otherwise been able to meet, and the experiences and the environments that I've been in because of the sport. So, you asked me the question, and I smile because it's been the best thing one of the best things that ever happened to me, just to kind of be involved in the sport because of what it's meant to the rest of my life. And so, forever grateful to the sport, and for that reason, I'm forever indebted to the sport.
All right. Thank you.